Good morning, everyone, and TGIF. Happy to see you on this beautiful Friday morning for our last session of Summit. My name is Christine Anderson. I work for the Office of Children and Family Services in the Division of Youth Development and Partnerships for Success, where I am the Anti-Trafficking and Runaway and Homeless Youth Program Coordinator and the Program Manager for the Safe Harbor New York program. Welcome to our last session of Summit. Celia Williamson is the Program Coordinator for the Safe Harbor and Treaty Programs for Catholic Charities of Herkimer County. She has spent the last several years as an advocate for youth that are at risk or have been identified as victims of sexual exploitation. Taylor has been providing trainings on commercial sexual exploitation of children, internet safety, and violence prevention since 2019. And with that said, I'm going to turn it right over to Taylor.
Good morning, everyone. Let me just make sure this is... Okay. All right. So good morning, everyone. My name is Taylor Money. I work with Catholic Charities of Herkimer County as the Safe Harbor Coordinator and the Treaty Program Coordinator. Today, we're going to be talking about safety planning around social media use. So for those who have not yet used a safety plan or know what one is, we'll discuss what that is and how it is used. Safety planning is really important really through the whole experience for a survivor, during the process of leaving, while they're in the process of leaving, and after they've already left. So the steps throughout a safety planning process would be the risk assessments. So assessing what the current risk might be for that person and identify current and potential safety concerns. Preparing by creating strategies for avoiding or reducing the threat of harm. And then contingency plans, so outlining concrete options for responding when safety is threatened or compromised. And it's really super important to remember the fact that this isn't a linear journey for a person. Some may go back to their trafficker or the person exploiting them. So really those contingency plans and making those plans realistic is important. So that way that person knows that, if they do stumble or if they do go back to their trafficker and find themselves back in that situation, that you are a safe person to come back to and there's no shame in that, and you can help them pick up where they left off. Okay, so on this slide, we have pages from OCFS's safety planning document. So this is actually the document that you can go on their website and use for when you are safety planning. So as we see here, the first page, we just have the personal info. So what the case ID is, any household members that might be involved, and the workers' information. So whether that's CPS or the CAC or Safe Harbor coordinators, everyone's information would be right there. The next pages, we have interventions and services that are involved. And you're also going to be listing who is doing what and what, the safety concerns that you have, what are those services doing to help that? And also who is monitoring those changes and the progress that you're making. The next page we have right here, the safety plan, page 3. This is where we put the sustainability. Again, you really want to make sure that your safety plans are realistic for the person that you're working with. Not realistic for yourself, but realistic for them and their situation. Putting a time frame on certain goals or certain interventions that you're going to be using, and just again planning for all different types of circumstances. And then on the last page, we just have the signatures of everyone that's involved. Okay, so Dr. Celia Williamson, about a few years ago, 2018, she did a speaking presentation at the University of Toledo for Human Trafficking and Social Justice Conference. So she cited a report that stated 58% of victims eventually meet their traffickers face-to-face, and 42% who initially met their trafficker online never met their trafficker in person, but they were still trafficked. So information was still gathered from them, and they were still unfortunately trafficked. And we know that the average age of entry into CSEC, which is child sexual exploitation of children, is between 12 and 14 years old. So she also cited in her report that traffickers are now using social media platforms, whether that's Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, as well as dating sites, Grindr, Tinder, and they're doing that to build relationships with people from behind a screen in order to find out what vulnerabilities they may have and kind of work on those vulnerabilities to be able to get them to either send content to them or meet in person. Okay, so we have the four main tactics of what a trafficker would use. So brute force is the one that we kind of see in movies, like in Taken, where the guy in the white van comes and takes someone physically. And that does still happen, but not as often as we're seeing some of the other tactics being used, which would be threats. Again, working on those vulnerabilities. Maybe a youth has a younger brother or sister they take care of, and the person can say, you don't do what I ask of you, I'm going to go after a younger brother or sister. Friendship is another one that we see often. Could be the cool older party crew trying to convince a younger person to come hang out with them. And they're thinking that that's their friend. And the next thing, they're in a really uncomfortable situation. And then finally, we have seduction. And this one can be really hard for anyone, whether they're a youth or an adult, to kind of realize the situation that they're in. They might think that they're in a relationship, a romantic relationship with their trafficker. And by the time they actually realize what's happening, it's oftentimes too late and they're already finding themselves in the life. So we know that these tactics traffickers are using face-to-face in person. However, with technology always evolving and the use of social media on the rise, we're seeing that traffickers have used the internet as a tool to access vulnerable youth and adults. So it's no longer just the man in the white van. They're behind their computer screens or cell phone screens, and they're making relationships with multiple people at once. Okay. So here we have just some of the most popular apps that youth and really adults are both using. Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, and TikTok. And just to better understand how to safety plan around social media, I want to go into more details of each of these social media platforms and what features are available on each of them, as well as how they might be being used by youth and predators, because I know that some people may not be so familiar with social media. Others might use it, but maybe not know all the settings, so we're going to go into that. Okay, so first is Facebook. Facebook has several features that are being used both by youth and adults that could potentially give out information that would be used for exploitation. As Dr. Celia Williamson said in the previous slide, we do know that traffickers and predators are using these apps to connect with youth. So one of the ways through Facebook that this can happen is through group pages. Group pages can be made pretty much for anything that you could think of, any interest, whether it's a sports team or a reality TV show or a music band. And oftentimes they have very minimal guidelines, if any, to just join. So someone doesn't have to be Facebook friends with somebody in order to be in the same group. And the next thing you know, conversations are happening on posts and, people are having common interests maybe. So this really allows somebody to be on the internet. And if there is a youth or even an adult that are on these group pages, it's very easy to form a relationship online, especially in this day and age. I feel like sometimes we think our Facebook friends we feel closer to than our friends in real life. Just because there's that constant interaction. And then we have check-ins. So check-ins basically pinpoint your location at that time. Some people use it maybe for a new restaurant that they're at. Other people may be checking in, maybe they're on vacation. And then some of us have those Facebook friends that maybe post that they're at the gym every day at 6 p.m. at night. What this does, it not only shows where you are and can create a timeline if you're using it often enough, but it also shows where you're not. And we'll get into that a little bit more as far as Facebook goes. Hashtags are used on Facebook. What that is basically it's the pound sign followed by any word or phrases. So it could be like hashtag love, hashtag outfit of the day, and these trend every single day. So you can actually go on Google and look up today's trending hashtags on Facebook or wherever other platform you're using. So this is a way that someone could use to, again, try to find that common interest or act like they have a common interest by looking up those hashtags that may be more popular in the youth population. Maybe hashtag Taylor Swift, her album just dropped at midnight. So we know that that would be a popular one, especially in the younger teen ages. So the hashtags are definitely a way that somebody could use to connect with others without being their Facebook friend even. And then next we have the biography information on Facebook. This is what you see directly under someone's profile picture when you click onto their profile. Facebook asks a lot of personal information, such as where you live, where you go to school, where you work, and even if you're in a relationship and with who. So we'll see in the next slideshow how this may be used to gain access to a person. Okay, so as you see here, I've made up a little mock profile of myself just as an example, and just changed up the information to go along with this presentation. So we'll see right here, right underneath my name, that's where the biography info would go. So we have mom, husky lover, gym rat, go thunder. And so for most of us, we're just thinking, you know, oh, what's the harm in that? I'm not putting my full information, but it's very, very easy to put just a little bit of information about yourself on a lot of different social media platforms. And what that does is creates a big digital picture of who you are, and kind of, you know, what goes on in your life. So as far as the biography info, you see that it says mom. So obviously I have children, and that right there could be a vulnerability for threats. You know, so just knowing, okay, well, she has children. So right there, that's a vulnerability that we can work on. Husky lover and gym rat, those can be used as common interests. Maybe, you know, looking at that, they can say, oh, well, what gym does she go to? Is she that person that posts every night at 6 o'clock at night that she's at the gym, and what gym she goes to? And then we have Go Thunder, so that could be associated with possibly my children's school district, if they're associated with sports. So it's very easy to kind of look up all that information and see a bigger picture just based on those few words in the biography. Right underneath, we have work location and information. So place of employment, it says right here, you know, I'm the Safe Harbor and Treaty Project Coordinator for Catholic Charities of Herkimer County. So that creates a routine and schedule right there. You could easily go on the website of my agency and see, okay, Taylor's going to be at this place from 8 to 3:30 p.m. Monday through Friday. So again, just creating that timeline without me ever even giving that information out to someone verbally. And then where I live, again, that narrows down the school district, possibly for my children, and even relationship status, whether it says single or taken. This is just all little information that we might think is very innocent to share, but another person that's trying to, you know, work the ins and outs and figuring out who we are and what our vulnerabilities are, this gives them a lot of information to go off of. Okay, so now we have Instagram. Instagram's main goal, I would say, is to get as many followers as you can. I hear youth all the time saying, oh, well, how many followers do you have on Instagram? I have this many. So it is image focused rather than posting like Facebook is. So it's all meant to kind of capture your attention with photos. So for this reason, we see that a lot of youth and even adults, they'll just follow and accept anybody very innocently and not thinking anything to get those numbers up. One of the features on Instagram is called direct messages. If you're a little bit older, you'll remember instant messages was kind of like the OG of what this is. So direct messages is just kind of a private inbox for your Instagram. And more recently, there's been a feature added to direct messages that allows you to receive messages from unknown users or people that you're not already following. So this creates an opportunity possibly for a youth to receive a message that they may reply to just out of curiosity. And then that could lead to further conversations and even the sharing of images or other content. And then similarly to Facebook, Instagram also uses hashtags and location tags. It's just a little bit different setup in how it looks. Okay, Snapchat is probably one of the most currently popular apps that is being used. If you don't use Facebook, it is mostly known for the various filters that it can put on your face. And here we have some other features that are used within the app. So we have here, okay, we have private stories. So what that is, again, if you're not familiar with Snapchat, you can basically post videos, post pictures onto what would be like your main story, so all of your friends can see it. But then there's also a private stories feature where you can only people that you add specifically to it in your friends list can see. So I have a lot of parents ask me or tell me, well, I have, a young child that's on Snapchat, but I'm their friend on there. So I'm always watching what they're doing. And so I feel like that's safe enough. I don't need to take any other measurements or precautions. And so with the private stories, you may be their friend, but they may be able to make that private story for maybe a specific person that they're communicating to on the internet, in which you would not see what they are sharing on that. Which then could be, screen recorded, screenshot, and then we all know once you put something on the internet, it is no longer just yours, and it can end up anywhere. Snapchat also has the messages delete option. So a lot of times I work mostly with youth. So when we talk about messages delete option, we talk a lot more about the internet safety aspect. So if a youth is talking to someone on the internet or possibly sharing inappropriate content or receiving inappropriate content, there is a messages delete option on Snapchat that allows your messages to either delete immediately as soon as you send within the chat, or within 24 hours. Meaning if you were to go onto that person's phone and into their Snapchat, you would no longer see, you might see the user's name they're talking to, but you're not going to see the messages or the content that's being shared within those messages. And then we also have the map feature that you can see right here in the bottom with all the different people. You'll notice that there's even a person that looks like they're flying, overseas to a different country. This is actually very accurate. You can, I use Snapchat myself. You can see when somebody's driving. I use this a lot in schools when I do internet safety presentations. I'll have youth bring out their phones and go to the Snapchat map, and most of them have this already on. You have to actually go into Snapchat and shut it off to not have your location shared with everyone on your friends list. And most of them do have it on. What's kind of concerning is you can actually zoom in, and not only will it show like exactly where you are in that street, but oftentimes it'll show like a good example of where in the building you're at. So if I was in the back end of a high school, it will show me closer to that back end of the high school. So that can be really concerning because that, again, a lot of people will just accept and friend request people thinking it's very innocent, completely forget that message request that they got from someone or that follow request that they got from somebody, and go about their day. And meanwhile, now this person has access to your location. They can create that timeline of what your schedule is and where you might be at. Okay. So lastly, for the social media apps, we have TikTok. Reportedly, I will say this is probably one of the biggest issues that we have as far as internet safety and exploitation on the internet is with TikTok. Originally, when TikTok first started a few years back, it was mostly just videos of dance trends. And while that still is the case, now you can see videos of pretty much anything, including like just people randomly sleeping. So it can get very weird on TikTok. So on TikTok, if you've never been on that platform, there's kind of two categories. One is your following page. So anybody that you're following, it's kind of like you can keep up with the videos that they're posting. And the other side is called your For You page. I like to call that Pandora's box because you never know what you're going to get. That is anybody around the world that is using TikTok, you're just randomly seeing any video. So I might scroll and I might see a video of a cute dog running, and then I might scroll to the next video and it's some highly inappropriate content for me to even see, let alone a youth that might just be scrolling on the page. Live videos. So with TikTok, you can post videos that aren't live streaming, but they've also more recently enabled a feature called live streaming. So it's just you on a live stream. Anybody that's on that For You page can go on and chat with you. And you're also able to send what's called gifts, which translates into actual money into their account. So if we're talking and thinking about like the grooming process, that is really, such a door opener for someone trying to groom someone, even if they're not following each other, because they can go right in the chat. And again, using social media now, it's very easier for us to feel like our followers are very close friends of ours when we see them, always on our streams and always talking to us and always commenting things. So this is really scary to think about when you think about, anybody being on your video, and even if they're not chatting with you, they're quietly watching. So you just want to be very careful of what's going on in the background, what information you may be giving out when live streaming. And then we have the challenges and trends. So like I said in the beginning of TikTok, it was really just all dances and trends. That still is true. There's still a lot of that going on. A lot of these challenges, the dances, the trends, they contain inappropriate language, songs, dances, and even gestures. Some of them even give away personal information that could be used to identify somebody. And we'll talk more about that in the next couple of slides. Okay. So before we start on this, I do have 2 videos. I just want to say they are volunteers. They have consented. I didn't just take a random stranger's video off TikTok for the purpose of this presentation. So the first example we have of a trend that was on TikTok is called the Silhouette Challenge. We're going to play it, but basically it starts off with somebody in either lingerie or revealing clothing. And then once the song kind of stops, it changes over to a red filter. And oftentimes people are either in brown underwear or no clothing. And what happens is there is an app. It's been reported that you're able to screen record that and take the red filter off. So what happens is instead of just seeing their silhouette, you're seeing everything that's in that content, in that video. And again, that can be shared anywhere. So we will take a look at the Silhouette Challenge.
Put your head on my shoulder.
Okay. So for the purpose of this presentation, I did ask that she had clothing underneath, but not only are adults recreating this, but so are the children and the youth that are using this app. So while it might be very scary and uncomfortable for an adult to have their images, the red filter taken off and used, when we're talking about minors and youth, that can be used for sextortion, again, the threats online. And TikTok does have guidelines. But as a person that myself uses TikTok, I can tell you that they're rarely used. It's really random. Some people will get reported on for a video that may be just very innocent, while I've seen other younger children and people using the same exact trend, and the video does not get taken down. Okay, so the next trend that we saw a lot on TikTok was called the "What's Your Name" trend. So it's kind of like a song and it asks all this information. And it's just giving out so much personal information. So we're going to play that.
What's your name? What's your name? What's your age? What's your age? Where you from? Where you from? What's your sign? What's your sign? Who you love? Who you love? What's your style? What's your style? What you do? What you...
Okay. So you see here, without even having a conversation with somebody, you're getting so much information about them. Maybe this was shared on their TikTok, and then maybe you're taking that information, you're putting it into Facebook or Instagram or Snapchat. It just goes back to putting a little bit of information in a lot of different places on the internet. It really creates a digital picture of who you are and, a lot of personal information. Okay. So on the next slide, we have a short video. It's Survivor Diaries from Nextmarks. It's about 2 young males, one specifically who's talking to strangers on the internet and kind of how that went wrong.
It happened to me 5 years ago. My parents were divorcing and things at school and with friends weren't too good. I felt like the world was falling down around me. That's when I met someone online. We would chat about everything in my life. I finally had someone to take my side and see things my way. I had someone who put me first. No matter how much I thought we could trust each other, I knew better than to meet in person with someone I had met on the internet. But one day, when school was dismissed early, there was someone waiting for me at my front door. I never thought I'd find myself in this situation. I learned the hard way that no matter who you think you're talking to online, there are people out there looking to hurt you. It doesn't matter if they're male or female, or if they look a little rough around the edges, or even if they're the most beautiful person. These people exist, online and in the real world.
It happened to me too. I was 14 and someone online sent me a private message. I shouldn't have responded, but I messaged back and 7 days later, agreed to be picked up outside of my house at midnight. I was taken to another house and what happened there was terrifying. I'll remember it for the rest of my life. I felt numb and powerless and didn't know what to do. I was too afraid to tell my parents and ashamed of what everyone would think of me. But hiding it was a mistake. I saw the car that I was taking and driving around my neighborhood all summer long. Was I being targeted again, or was someone else being victimized? I finally decided to tell someone.
I have to live with the decision I made to trust someone I met on the internet.
But the important thing is that I told someone. I'm not a victim, but a survivor.
Okay, so I really like that in this example they use males in their story because I feel like there's still such a stigma when you think about trafficking and exploitation that we just think it's females that it happens to. And I often wonder if that's just because of the stigma of it and the shame. And you do see there's some statistics in this video. I believe it's 65% of males had agreed to meet the people that they spoke to on the internet in person, which is a really high number. And then 39% of males that had uncomfortable experiences online, they never reported it at all. Okay, so now that we've kind of covered how certain platforms are used, we'll talk about the actual way that traffickers and predators are using these apps and platforms to exploit people. By using the internet, they no longer have to be driving around again in that white van. They can be in the comfort of their own home, and it allows them to really use the internet to really exploit and prey on multiple people at once. You could be having multiple conversations at the same time. So they're creating relationships online. They can pretend to be anyone that they say they are, male, female, whatever age that they want to say that they are. And again, acting on those common interests and those vulnerabilities, pretending that maybe they like Taylor Swift and that's why they're in that group, or they like hockey and that's why they're in that group. Creating false promises. You see in the last video clip, the one young male was saying how his parents are going through a divorce, and he had a lot of things going on at school, so he didn't really feel like he had anyone to talk to in his personal life. So, really just venting to strangers on the internet, and them in turn, making those false promises and, I can help you out, or I know a better way to go about this. And meanwhile gathering that information and seeking out those vulnerabilities. And at that point, it doesn't take very long for someone to feel like they are connected at that point through the internet. And the next thing you know, they can either be agreeing to meet up in person, or persuading them to share content that they may not be comfortable with other people seeing. And that's where we see a lot of the sextortion and the threats, now I have this image of you or this live stream recorded of you, and if you don't do what I want you to do, I'll use this to out you. All right, so this is one of the takeaway resources for you all, and the links will be shared, I believe, at the end of this training. So the first is from Polaris Project. So the National Human Trafficking Hotline recorded recruitments in all types of trafficking, both sex and labor, on all different types of social media platforms, to include Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, and then also dating sites like Tinder and Grindr. So we will see here. Job advertisements, whether it's massage parlors or modeling, acting agencies, escorts, dancing, even agricultural work, they're being used on sites, whether it's Craigslist, back pages at one point, Facebook, Instagram. So they're using this to, as a ploy, saying that it's a job, and we see it very often. And then maybe somebody, especially if it's a youth, that maybe they're homeless, maybe they don't have any money, and they're in that vulnerable situation financially, will reach out in hopes to get this dream job, and then later find out that that's not exactly what they were told it was. So we can see here, this is an excerpt from the Polaris Project on page 19. It says, by way of scope, case data from January 2015 through December 2017 recorded 845 potential victims were recruited on internet platforms. So this included 250 potential victims on Facebook, 120 recruited on a dating site, 78 on Instagram, and 489 on any other type of internet platforms like Craigslist or chat rooms that they couldn't identify during the hotline call. I do just want to point out that this was a few years back, and we've definitely seen an increase since 2020 with COVID and schools going remote and people being on the internet more because they weren't getting that physical interaction with others, that these numbers are a lot higher. Okay. So job deception is another way that a trafficker might be using social media to lure people into the life. And when we're talking about safety planning with somebody, whether they're just at risk or whether they've, are in the process of leaving that lifestyle, it can be very hard for them to adjust from going to that fast-paced money, that income that they're getting, to re-entering the workforce and kind of adjusting their life back to that 9 to 5, back to not making anywhere near that type of money. So talking with clients about potential jobs, skills that they may have for those jobs, what realistic wages are. They might not have ever worked in a normal 9 to 5 job, so they don't know what normal wages are, and that can be very discouraging for them at first. And just keep making them aware of risky job postings can really help with your safety planning strategies. So we see these are also from the Polaris Project Roadmap for Systems and Industries to Prevent and Disrupt Human Trafficking for Social Media, pages 22 and I believe that's 25 or 23. So the first one is a Facebook post. So we see, tired of working a minimum wage dead-end job, want to get out and see the country while getting paid cash every day and having fun? We pay for lodging and food. Hit me up for details. What are you waiting for? And as you can see, we have all these people commenting. Whether you're a young adult, a youth, you see that and you're like, oh, sign me up, traveling, I'm making money every day, they're paying for where I stay and my food. You have to really put yourselves in the shoes of the person that you're working with. I might look at this and be like, oh yeah, that's definitely a scam, probably not safe. But somebody that may be in a really vulnerable situation and they need money, or they need that escape, or they ran away from home, might see that and think, oh my goodness, like this is exactly what I needed. And then we see this post here to the right. Move this over so you can see. So you can see, they're making money with great people, and obviously the main image is made to attract people to it because it's a whole bunch of money on the floor. So this was used from a public Facebook post of a potential door-to-door sales company. All right. So social media has been used as a means of control. So we have an excerpt here also from Polaris Project. So it says social media was really a piece of reinforcing all the grooming that was happening for this person. Because I felt like I was connected with the outside world, but I was only allowed to follow other girls in the game, so it reinforced all those social norms. So right here we see that maybe they're being allowed that freedom of having social media, but it's really only to reinforce that grooming and make them normalize what is going on and what is happening to them, because the only people that they're friends with are on there are people that are also going through the same thing and are also in the life. Oftentimes, social media is used by a trafficker to stalk or monitor. So while they may be able to use that social media platform and talk to other people, it is also a way to see what exactly are they saying, who are they speaking to, and outing victims even. So right back to one of the main tactics being threats. If you leave or if you don't do what I say, I'm going to out you to all of your family on Facebook, all of your friends on Facebook that may not know what you're involved in, or spreading lies and rumors about you on your account. We see a lot of hacking accounts and impersonating. So, right back to if that person leaves and the person that they were with at that time is able to hack or get into their account, what information about them do they know that they don't want getting out to people that may be shameful or embarrassing to them? And then revenge porn. We see this a lot, whether it's on websites like Pornhub, whether it's on Facebook, really any Snapchat, any really social media platform. Somebody that's trying to get out of that lifestyle, it can be very hard when they know that there's content of them that they don't want other people to see. And then we have 34% of respondents who had accessed social media noted that their trafficker restricted their social media in some way. So we know that just because we may have somebody on Facebook, you never know who could be in that situation. It could be someone you've been Facebook friends with forever. You don't know what's going on behind closed doors. And for those that have escaped the life, these tactics, can be used to also get them back. They may have left and now they're in that safe place, but now, their trafficker is able to get in touch with them. And, if you don't come back to work for me, then I'm going to use, this content of you, or I'm going to message your family on Facebook. Right. So just as traffickers are using social media and technology for their gain, we can also use it as advocates and caregivers to help safety plan. So this goes back to planning for, I don't want to say the word relapse, but planning for that person in case they do find themselves going back, because their journey, it's not linear. They may have struggles where they see themselves going back, whether that's a emotional connection to the person that they were with, whether it's financial reasons, whatever the reasons are, we want to make it realistic that sometimes it does happen. And so that way that person feels like, okay, if it does happen, I know I can go back to my safe harbor advocate or to the counselor that I'm working with, and they're going to help me pick up right where I left off. There's going to be no judgment and no shame of that. And that really is what makes a safety plan, I feel like, come full circle and it just be a quality safety plan is just really that preparing for anything. So going back to some of the features that we learned on different sites and kind of changing your focus on how they're being used, how we can use them, and how the people that we're helping can use them for their own safety. So that disappearing messages feature, maybe they don't know about that. And maybe during one of our sessions of talking to them, we're teaching them these different things about these apps. And if you are in a position where maybe you're still living with your trafficker, or you're still near them, or they have access to hack your account, you're making sure that those messages can disappear. So if you're asking somebody for help or you're talking about leaving, that those messages aren't being seen by anybody that you don't want them to be. Teaching someone how to delete history logs, whether that's websites they're searching, whether that's Facebook groups that they're searching, just really making sure they know what are these features and using them for their own benefit. Just like we spoke about with Snapchat and Facebook and the sharing of location, teaching them how to disable the location to the public, to the majority of their friends list, but also sharing them to share that location maybe with some support members. So who do they have in their circle that's really their support and helping them get out? Maybe it's a family member, maybe it's a friend, just kind of a safety feature of sharing that location with maybe just that one person or that couple of people, to where, if they look on the map and they see maybe I'm not at Catholic Charities from 8 to 3:30 Monday through Friday, and that's not like me, then that kind of raises that red flag, like, are they okay? Is something happening? So using that location also for their own safety. And then finally, connecting to online support groups and services. Really us educating ourselves on what are those online supports and services for somebody. Again, everyone is in a different place in their journey, and not everyone is safely able to physically go to a meeting, physically go to an appointment, or make a phone call. It's oftentimes not safe for them. So the National Human Trafficking Hotline is a great example of this, because not only do they have a 24-hour toll-free phone number you can call, but there's also a texting feature and a live chat feature, which I love because I feel like it just goes back to that safety portion. Again, they might not be in a situation where they can make a phone call or they can leave, but they may be able to send a quick text or to chat with somebody quick just to get some support and help them. All right. So as advocates and caregivers, it's really important for us to study these apps to know how they work. If traffickers are using these apps, then we need to be using these apps. So studying the apps and policies and settings, they are constantly changing on social media, even gaming apps. So really just keeping ourselves in the know, and the easiest way to do that is by using the apps ourselves. Understandable if some of us really don't care for social media, but I really feel like if you're in this field, just trying to make yourself aware, maybe going into Snapchat and just checking out some of the features every now and then, checking out what changes are being made so that you can not only keep yourself informed, but you can keep the people that you're working with informed as well. Talk about with your clients what apps they use. If maybe you're working with someone that doesn't use TikTok at all, doesn't care for it, but they use Snapchat, asking them, what kind of apps do you like to use on social media? What accounts do you have? And strategizing from there. If you're working with someone that's maybe at risk only, talking about the ways in which the apps are used to gain information. So everything that we've talked about in this presentation, and kind of just educating them. A lot of times I'll go into schools for internet safety presentations, and at the end, in the beginning, the students are like, oh, we don't need this, we already know everything about social media. And oftentimes at the end, they're almost in a shock because they didn't even really put together. They may have known all of these features, but they didn't kind of change their focus to, okay, we have all these features on these apps, but now how could someone use them if they didn't have the best interest for us? So talking about them, educating them on internet safety. And then if you have a client that's already been a survivor of trafficking and exploitation, maybe asking them the ways that they've used these apps in the past to connect with their trafficker or with people within that lifestyle, and kind of using that as your basis for your social media safety planning. Sometimes no social media is the answer. You really want to make sure that that is a decision that is made by the person that you're working with, because you want to keep the safety plan realistic for them. Maybe it's making a new account, maybe it's utilizing the privacy settings, but you really want to make sure that it's really up to the person you're working with in order for the safety plan to work as well as it can. And then strategizing different resources. So again, is there a local or a group online that they can connect with if they can't make a meeting or go into a session with somebody? What internet safety courses are available, whether that's in person or online, and what other resources can they use? Okay, so here I have another take-home resource for you guys. Again, the links will be shared at the end, but this is specifically for Facebook. I actually didn't know prior to even doing this presentation that they had this handbook, which I think is really neat. So we have a guide for survivors of abuse on privacy and safety on Facebook, and really anybody can use this, but they have a lot of good information as far as Facebook's privacy page. They even have a family safety center, basic privacy settings and tools. So, if you're not a technological person and you don't really use Facebook or any social media, it'll kind of break it all down for you. Security tips and tools. They even have a safety net project, safety net resources and online safety. So there's a whole bunch of different topics that you can actually go on and use this, whether it's just for yourself to know information, whether you're working with someone and you just want them to be in the know on, the privacy settings, specifically on Facebook. This is a really good place to start. Okay. Another resource that you can use as far as internet safety is Nextmarks. They have a whole library. This is through Missing and Exploited Children, NECMEC's website. They have so many different categories, whether you're an educator in schools, whether you're a parent, maybe you're a safe harbor advocate. They have so many different age groups, and it's really geared perfectly towards using language and content that age group would be able to understand and that is appropriate for them, and all different topics, whether it's video games, whether it's social media, internet safety tips. So you can go on that website and they have a ton of information and resources that you can pull from to both educate yourself and those that you're working with. So how can we help? What can we do? Open conversations are so important. Again, you don't want to make anyone feel shameful. You don't want to make anyone feel like if, they take a few steps back in their journey that you take offense to that or we're not going to help. And just being very honest and real in those conversations. Okay, if you're going to continue to use social media, what options would you feel comfortable and realistic with in making? What is the plan if you do happen to go back into that lifestyle? What can we do there? So really just, again, making that safety plan as foolproof as you can and keeping that conversation open that, people do sometimes go backwards and it's not linear and that's okay. If it's a youth, maybe monitoring, if you're working with a parent or a caregiver, monitoring that internet usage and really talking about, even if it's at-risk youth, letting the parents be in the know. There is a lot of internet safety categories on this Nextmarks site that is specifically for parents. Going right back to, I had a parent say, well, I'm on my kid's Snapchat, so I see what they post, but they had no idea what private stories were. So just making sure that they're aware of that and continuing to educate ourselves as things change on the internet, as new apps start to come out, different features start to come out. It's just super important for us to know what tools there are out there so that we can keep people informed and we can also safety plan to the best of our abilities. So that is the end of my presentation, a little early, but this is my contact information in case you have any questions on any of the presentations that I do, or if anyone has any questions in the chat, we can take a look and I can answer those.
Thank you, Taylor. We do have a couple questions in the chat. One is about, do you have any information about Discord? I assume that's an app. I am not familiar because the person who put the question in the chat said a lot of their clients use it.
So I know of Discord. I won't say that that's something I actually use and I'm very educated on it. But I can definitely pull some information that I have if you're interested in the internet safety courses that I have. And if they want to leave their email or if you can send that to me, I can get in touch. As far as I know, I think Discord is kind of like a message board.
Okay.
I'm not sure, correct me please in the chat if I'm wrong, but that it goes right back to any of the apps that have that direct message or that IM. You don't know who you're talking to on the other end, and especially if it's somebody that's younger. Any social media platform that can be used, I would assume is going to be used by someone that's looking to be in that life or to recruit.
Yeah, we're hearing a lot of people saying it is a live chat, a lot of schools for groups and gaming. It allows persons to stream, voice chat, message, etc. I feel in my bones like a few years ago, and Taylor, you participated in this, our whole summit was about internet and social media safety, and I feel like we touched on it a little bit. So you could always go back and shamelessly plug the OCFS YouTube and check out some of those presentations to see if it's mentioned there. but this just goes to show how much social media evolves and changes rapidly, and that it's why it's so hard to keep up. Another question is, do you have any information on how traffickers use games like Roblox and Minecraft? Because we know that that's starting to happen.
Say that. Yeah, as soon as you said the gaming, I have a son actually he's 8, and he is a gamer, and we do we're very open. We have conversations even at that young age about, if someone tries to get information from you and what isn't safe. Roblox and Minecraft, they have chats just like any of these other apps. And he actually had something happen last year where he was just playing Roblox. And at the time, I didn't even know, I knew like an idea of what Roblox was, but I didn't know there was even a chat feature. And this is what I do for a living. So I didn't even know. And he had gotten a message that was a little inappropriate and asking for his name and his age. And thank goodness we do have those open conversations, which is why it's so important to have, because immediately he gave me it and we blocked him. And I taught him this is how you block someone. So yeah, they are, you can find that in anything. Anywhere where you're able to communicate, there's a risk that there might be someone on there that's looking to recruit or exploit somebody.
Yeah, and I actually learned that. So my daughter is 17, so we live in social media land. And she got a Nintendo Switch a couple years ago. I wouldn't say she's a gamer, but she likes to do it when her friends are here. I didn't realize that you can play on your Switch other people from all over the world if you have that feature set up. So one of the things we talked about is like you're allowed to play people and they need to be like, I need to be able to see their name. Like, it's so crazy that growing up, we had like Nintendo and you just played whoever was sitting next to you on the couch. Like, It's just so crazy. How can we help a child get a video removed from an adult site? That's a great question.
Honestly, what I would do is contact NCMEC. Probably would be the first thing. They specialize in that. They have people specialized in how to technologically get that taken down. But I think that really goes back to making sure that someone, especially a child, you have those open conversations so they don't feel the shame in telling you like, hey, I made a mistake. I sent something I shouldn't have, and now it's here. So at least, okay, yes, that happened, but now we can minimize who's seeing it instead of them not telling you, and then God knows where it's going after that.
Yeah, there's a similar question. Can you go into or refer me to a resource that can help people delete history or an entire Facebook account? And I know adults who've had trouble deleting an entire Facebook account.
Mm-hmm. If they want my email, we can set up this. I think the easiest way is I have to just show you, like screen share. But I can definitely, if you're interested, I can walk you through Facebook and taking that down.
Yeah, there's a question that says, my granddaughter is using Minecraft for her schoolwork. She works with it in school. Is this something we should worry about?
Not to worry, but I will say that I have worked with a youth whose parent was very much strict. Okay, they did not have a cell phone. They did not have anything, video, anything electronic communications. They did not have. And unfortunately, this young person ended up in a situation where they were trafficked and abused. And the way that they contacted them was they were using their school computer, and they were on Snapchat and Facebook and Instagram. And they thought they were talking to a 17-year-old boy, ended up being a 26-year-old man, and they ended up sneaking out and were taken somewhere. And unfortunately for them, things happen that shouldn't have. So I would say, especially if you're not using it at home, schools have changed completely over to Chromebooks and using the internet. I teach in school for this program and also for the treaty, which is anti-bullying. And oftentimes I'll bring in like worksheets or stuff that we need pens and pencils for, and they don't even have that because they're just using the Chromebook. So unfortunately, we can't stop them from accessing the internet at this point. But I would say having those conversations with your kids, if it's a concern specifically with your child, maybe speaking to the teacher. And that's why I try really hard to push out to school administrations on CSEC and internet safety, because sometimes the teachers aren't aware.
Right. And I think something you said, Taylor, is so important is like, we can't live in this world of fear, right? We can't keep our kids in a bubble as much as we want to, right? So we have to like mitigate the risk, right? We have to teach them how to handle situations when they feel uncomfortable. Who do they have that they can trust? And it's funny because there's little things that you don't think of. So you spoke about TikTok earlier, with the 17-year-old, like everything, like the world revolves around TikTok, right? And the new Taylor Swift album dropping last night. Big news at my house. But it's little things. And I have a very good friend who's in law enforcement. And he said to me something like, hey, when Emma makes TikToks, what does she wear? And I thought that was kind of a strange question, right? It comes across a little like, why are you asking that? If she's wearing something that says like her school on it, or she's an athlete, a sporting event she went to, that gives you her location, right? Roundabout, like kind of like not her full address, but it says, oh, this is the community in which this child lives. So it really makes it a little easier for somebody to figure out where she is, what her routine is, like you said. So that's just something else to think about when you're safety planning with kids that I would never have thought of. Like, oh, she's just got her t-shirt on. And it's like from a race she was in or something. And it says, yeah, but it says Albany, New York. So they could probably Google her name, not that the last name's on there, but and Albany, New York, and maybe find out some more information. So
I like that you pointed that out, because I even tell the kids that I educate in schools, they could not be even wearing that, but maybe their basketball jersey's hanging up on their wall.
Yep.
And they don't even notice, even adults. I did a CSEC training virtually a couple of years back, and one of our workshops was me picking somebody from the crowd, from the participants, and I had asked them ahead of time, I'm gonna look at your profile, and they actually were a perfect candidate because they only had one picture of their child. It took me an hour. I found out the child's name. They were on honor roll when their next basketball game was. And what I did was I made that mock profile. And by the end, they were like, that is scary. That you can, and that's just me in an hour. That's, not someone that spends all day doing this.
Little things that we don't think of, right? You wouldn't even think the background. So just another thing when you're safety planning with youth to think about and talk to them about. Marcia agrees, be aware of the background in the photo too. Do you have any information on Yubo? A client of mine has used the app before to try and make friends. I am not familiar with that app at all.
I'm not, but thank you for bringing it up, because now I'm definitely going to look into that, especially for my son, and it might be something new that's come out. And that's just a perfect example, is there's so much constantly coming out. I started TikTok in 2020. We were all home. There's nothing to do. And I didn't even know that at that point it had already been out for like a year or two. And the same thing with Snapchat. So even me trying to be hip and in the know of all this stuff, new things like that are always coming up.
Yeah. And we have a participant who brings up another good point. So thanks for mentioning this. Fabio, I hope I pronounced your name correctly, that some photos have a location setting. So it's funny because my girlfriend taught me this. If you send someone a picture from your phone, they can go to properties and it will tell them exactly when and where the photo was taken. But you can turn that off. So thank you. That's another great point. And that's like a newer thing, I think, with iPhones. And, because they update every 6 months or something. So you could make something purple. I don't know. Pretty
sure it's called geotagging. Okay. So if you're trying to figure out how to turn that off, there's YouTube videos. It's a geotag. So yeah, and even I have an Android and it'll do that too.
Yeah, just all these little nuances, which is why I feel like these conversations are so important, is so we can all learn from each other. It is really sad that kids have to worry about what they're wearing when they, post on Instagram or TikTok. And, it's just an extra feature to kind of keep them safe. David, I see your question and I will make that connection. I'll let Taylor look at it herself and I can do that introduction for you. Marsha would like to know if we can go back to phone booths, answering machines, and letter writing. I hold your breath, Marsha. Kids don't even know what photo booths are because they don't see them. They don't know what payphone, I live in Albany, and in the Capitol, they still have the payphone booths. where you could go in and make a call. And my daughter was like, what's that? And I was like, well, if you needed to call somebody. And she was like, what? And I was like, back in the day, not sure if this was mentioned, but some traffickers use Find My Phone to keep track where the girls are. Yes. So if they have previously been trafficked or exploited, working with them to maybe clean their phone's history, like reset it.
Yes, it's super important about that too. There's a way, so let's say, for example, there's a trafficker who heavily monitors somebody's phone. They can put a secret app on the phone that may look like a calculator, may look like your photo album, and they can store pictures there. Even if you're working with a youth and maybe the parents need to monitor if they're at risk or sending content, looking in that, and if you're a person trying to get out of the life, also keeping an eye on, did your phone download any new apps? Do I have anything new on my phone? That maybe my location and my iPhone settings are off, but maybe there's an app that's been put on my phone. So really just, yes, paying attention to those. I just got a lot of trainings. I get that a lot.
We weren't that concerned, Fabio. We're glad to hear that, but we weren't concerned. And you can, if you are a parent or a supportive adult for a young person and you share a phone plan, I know that my daughter cannot download any apps without my permission or the code or whatever. So you can put that setting on. Air tags is another great point. They're being used as well, either on their phones or in their purses. We've also heard of people leaving air tags on people's cars to track them. So just being very mindful of your surroundings and checking things out. If something feels off, trust your gut, contact the appropriate authorities. What is an air tag? That's a good question.
So an air tag, it's about this big. It kind of, to me, looks like a toy battery. You see like kids accidentally swallow them. It's about that size. And what you do is you can, some people put it in their kids' book bag as like a safety measure, but they can be left, underneath a car. They can be left in someone's, and they're very small. You could literally walk by and just drop it on a person's phone, really anywhere. And what it does is it tags their location. So it's basically a tracker. iPhone came out with it. And you can have as many tags as you want and be tracking all of those at the same time. So whether a trafficker is knowingly telling them that you have to keep this on you or else I'm going to know that you don't have it, or if they just happen to be, putting it in their purse or putting it in just places that they may not see. Maybe it's the zipper of your purse where all your change goes missing that you don't pay attention to. So it's used to track.
Yeah. We've heard some scary stories about them. So again, it just goes back to being mindful of being aware of your surroundings, checking things out, and things of that nature. But I do want to pivot a little bit. Social media isn't all bad. Like, let's not panic. You told a story earlier, Taylor, about sharing your location. I think you were talking about Snapchat, if I remember correctly, and how you can choose who can see your location. And I remember reading a story in the news, I think it was like 2 years ago, maybe. It was kind of at the height of all of this social media, and a young girl had been abducted. And because her friends could see her location on Snapchat, they were able to recover her. So there are, again, it's used with caution, be mindful. It's not all bad. TikTok's not a horrible, terrible place.
And use those features the same way that a trafficker might be using them to make yourself safe. It's just about knowing. We can't tell anyone, you're never going to use social media. You're never going to use a piece of technology, because you are. It's integrated into the school system now. They're using Chromebooks. It's just about just knowing and being educated in what apps and features there are, and using them for someone else's safety. Turn off your location for all of your friends, but maybe turning it on for a parent or someone in your support system or your friends so that they know where you are. I have girlfriends that will go on dates and they're like, send my location for the next 24 hours just to be safe. You just never know, just to be safe. And it's not all bad. We use it to connect with people. It's just being mindful of, walking is good for you. Have there been people that have been abducted walking? Yes.
Right.
We're not going to live inside and just not live our life. It's just being mindful.
Right. And Marsha left us with a very poignant quote: life is always filled with storms, but there is always a rainbow behind the storm. That's beautiful. I think that's a great way to wrap us up with those beautiful words. I want to thank Taylor for her expertise today. In addition to all of the resources Taylor shared, which we will distribute after Summit, there is a social media safety page on the OCFS website. You can go to the OCFS YouTube. There's a bunch of internet safety presentations. I would like to thank, in addition to Taylor, all of our presenters for this whole week, because this wraps us up. I would like to thank my administration at OCFS, Commissioner Poole, Deputy Commissioner Aladort, my supervisor Madeline Hare, and our team for all of their help. I want to thank everybody at WRI on top of keeping me sane during all of this planning and presenting week. They handle all of the logistics and the technical aspects, and I could not do this without them. I can't stress that enough. They're amazing. And I want to thank all of you for being here. I saw many names over and over again this week, which just shows me your dedication and your drive to further this work and be the best people we can be to help make our community safer. So thanks to all of you. You inspire me on a daily basis. Have a wonderful weekend, and thank you. That's a wrap on Summit 2022. Have a great day, everyone. Thanks, Taylor.
Thank you.